Hi everybody. Today is all about the remix, taking something that was kind of working and going a completely different direction. So the painting I'm going to be doing is this one right here, and it's been sitting on my shelf for maybe a year. Jane Davies put out a video earlier this week, and it was all about collage and really making cool collage paper. And I thought, well, I've got some collage paper. I'm going to do this to one of my existing paintings, and I'm going to make a super cool collage landscape. And that is not what I made, but that was my intention. So you'll see a couple times in this video, I keep trying to add collage and it just didn't fit. There is some collage in here, but it was completely different than my expectation going into it. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. So this is another reminder. One, if you have art that's kind of working, but doesn't really make your heart sing, don't give up on it. Put it aside for a while and then come back and give it a remix. Secondly, don't be afraid to abandon your plan for what is happening in front of you. If I had stayed on that path, it would have been super forced and I probably would have hated it. So I'm glad that I allowed myself, gave myself permission really to step off of that path and just follow this painting wherever it led to. Come along and join me for this remix. This is the painting that I started out with today. It was clearly, it was a texture experiment when I did it. So you can see that I've sanded down a lot of it to reveal the layers underneath. There's lots of collage built up under here. That whole big black section in the middle is a piece of scratch paper that I used to offload my brayer. I really like those marks. And I was ready for a change. It was just time. My initial thought was to calm down all of the texture by adding some creamy white. And to be quite honest, I didn't know what to do after I did this. So I went a little more aggressively with the white. A lot more aggressively as I'm watching this again. And pulling back some of the color to make sure I didn't wipe out all of the... There were some cool marks underneath. So I wanted to make sure I didn't wipe out all of the history. One of the benefits of kind of remixing a painting like this and taking something that wasn't quite working and completely going a different direction is really that you get all the history of the existing piece. So you kind of get, however many layers you've already put in that piece. I don't even know how this piece started. I can't remember it at all. But let's say I have 8 layers here or 4 layers. I still get the benefit of all of that history, creating like a richness to build on for this new painting. This is a straight edge. I decided I wanted to contrast all of the loose roughness of this painting and add some straight lines. As I mentioned earlier, my goal was to make this into some sort of landscape that involved a lot of my collage paper. I have so much collage paper. There's so much collage paper right now on my floor because I took out some of my bins of jelly printed paper that I made a long time ago. And I just kind of divided it all up into things that I thought would be cool, things that still needed some more painting on, like some potential pieces. And they're still on my floor, unfortunately. I'll put them back eventually, right? Tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. It's fine. I was still in this part just trying to find my way. I knew I wanted to cover a lot of it up, but I didn't want to cover everything up. And I really think that the boldest move you can make will help inform the rest of your choices. For whatever reason, I decided it would be a great idea to take this giant piece of tissue paper, giant, and I kept thinking, like, what if I do this? I shouldn't do this. What if why am I shouldn't do this. What if this is awful? And then when I was like, I'm afraid to do this, as soon as I thought that, I was like, all right, we're doing it. Go big or go home. And this helped so much get me actually started with this painting. It was such a bold move, and it was so pink, you guys. This is like, you can tell, but it's hot pink tissue paper. I typically do not use hot pink, but this, there's something about having a painting that wasn't working and doing it that is freer. I feel more free to experiment and potentially ruin the whole thing than I do if I'm starting with a white panel. I don't know why. Because with a white panel, you also kind of have nothing to lose, but but it could be great. Maybe that's what it is. The white panel is crisp and perfect and pure how it is, and you can either make it better by painting something cool, or you can, quote, ruin it. I don't believe you ever ruin it because you can always add more layers. But, right, just my subconscious does a number on me too in terms of wanting things to be great. Who wouldn't want to start a painting and make it the best painting ever? That sabotages me, though, if I start thinking that way. So when I start with a painting that there's things I like about it, but it's not something I'd want to show or sell or anything else, there's some kind of like freedom unlocked stage that I can get to where I do crazy things like cover 2/3 of a painting with a piece of pink tissue paper. But I did feel free, and I really like this color palette that started with these warm yellows, crazy amount of pink. It's so much pink. And this is where I started thinking about, well, where I continued thinking about, hey, I'm going to make a collage landscape. This is what I'm going to do. I have all these cool collage papers that I haven't used. I'm going to do this now. I tried hard with that bright yellow. It has some cool light blue on it that I really like, that the contrast between those two. I'm adding a little bit of glazing with some quinacridone gold. I added some actual, it's called sun gold from Nova Color earlier to see a little metallic flare in there. I like it when you put some metallic-y colors in and then cover up most of it, so you just get little spots of shine later on. And this is some pyrrole red mixed with, it might be mixed with the hot pink from Nova Color, I'm not sure. And this is where the glazing began. This piece is kind of an ode to glazing. I put so many layers on and had so much fun doing it. All right, let's try some more collage. What else can I collage in here? Haven't added anything yet other than the giant piece. That's not true. I did add a lot of pink. I'm really trying to feel out the color palette. Do I want purple? Do I want something cool in there to tone down the pinks? Do I want to add fiery orange to really ramp things up even more? This is very much a more is more situation that I got myself into. Too much pink? Okay, let's add more pink. Too warm? Let's add some orange and some red. The black part that's kind of right in the middle of the painting was one of the things I did not like about the version that I started out with. And it was still bugging me here. Thought about covering it up, but it just felt too clunky to do that, at least in the way that I was trying. Again, I was trying so hard to add all these different things because I really wanted to make this a collage. When I started glazing, like I'm doing now, I was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. In the back of my head, I still kept thinking like, well, maybe some collage. But it felt really good, first of all. I just put some water on there to see if I could get some cool drips, but I just wiped them off, didn't really love them. So right now I'm taking an X-Acto knife and I'm just carving some straight lines into the painting, right into the panel. What happens when I do that is it allows the paint to seep in to those cracks, especially if it's really watery paint. And it will kind of get in there and it'll stain it, and it adds some depth. It adds some, rustic isn't the right word, but it adds some kind of history where like this panel's been through some things. I can see some lines. They're really straight lines. So I use this watered down black. And it is hard to see from this vantage point. Sorry about that. Take my word for it. It seeped into the crevices there. And it just it took away some of like the sunshiny feel of everything to tone it down a bit. I wanted this to be, I understood that it was going to basically be like a very warm painting, but I didn't want it to be this obnoxious, oh my gosh, she's lost her mind. She's just doing a bright pink painting. Not that there's anything against that. It just wasn't what I was going for. So I mixed some different colors to darken this and to make a darker glaze. So I used some black. I used some bone black, which is a more transparent black, which kind of tints things. And then I also used some Payne's Gray. This is the bone black that I just squeezed out. And this is just, I'm just glazing with this bone black. At some point, I guess around here, I decided I wanted to keep that trapezoid rectangle shape on the bottom right to keep that brighter than the background, just so it stood out. So you'll notice that many times as I'm glazing, I will continue to go around that area so that it's not going into that area, keeping that kind of a negative space. More decision making. Do I add more light? Do I add more fire? Do I add something dark? With this piece, ultimately, I decided just to tear one edge so that it was still a firm, straight line addition, but also had a little bit of soft edge to it. Told you. It's actually a clean line too. That felt good. So I'm using gloss medium to glue everything down, per usual. And I'm using paper towels a lot as part of the glazing process. So I'm adding, right, this wet, when I'm glazing, I'm adding kind of watered down paint with a wet cloth. And what it does is it gives me a really thin layer of the paint. And if you do this with transparent paint colors, it really adds a really cool glow to everything. Where it feels like you can feel the depth. You can feel that it's not just one layer of paint. You don't necessarily, You can't see every layer, but you can see there's kind of this glow that comes out of it. And the paper towel helps me do a couple things. One, it helps dry it really quickly. And two, it allows me to kind of remove some of the texture. So it doesn't show brush strokes, doesn't show the strokes of me pulling the color down with the wipe that I'm using. And it smooths that out. This is a regular screwdriver that I use just to rough up the surface a bit too. It's not really carving into it. I really like doing that when the paint is wet, which I did not do this time, but I was looking for some more texture. Surprise! We jumped a lot in here. Unfortunately, my phone died when I was making that video and it lost a whole big chunk of progress. But I added some more collage pieces, added some white paint, and now I'm adding fluorescent red as a glaze, which really brightened up the red, as you might imagine. It was a really cool effect that I enjoyed quite a bit. Now, due to the magic of me, right, losing a lot of that last video, things come together very quickly here for how it looks in the end result. I'm getting very close here to what it looks like in the end, but I do add a couple things that I really had fun adding. And you wouldn't think it, but I added like another 17 layers of glaze in various colors to darken it, to brighten it, to just do something with it. Were they all necessary? You know, apparently for me it was, but I don't know that it changed it that much, other than just to really give it a lot of depth. I don't think you can do too many layers of glaze if you're looking for depth. Added that section up there with the tape, if for no other reason, just to make some more straight lines, because lots of my straight lines have gone away or muted somehow. And I didn't want so much of the neon red showing, so I added some pyro red on top. I'm really happy with where it is right now, and this might be done. So stay tuned. If there are any more updates, I promise to share them with you. Otherwise, let me know, what do you like better? The way it started or the way it ended? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I would love you to hit the subscribe button so I can bring new art to your feed every week, every Sunday.